Hello everyone, I'm Dominica McGinnis and this is Chris Kirby and we're with the Bridgefield Group. And today we're going to be discussing growing your practice more than just your client development, the internal relationships and of building a successful practice. And you know, Chris and I have had to do this together and part of that requires us to argue quite a bit and to discuss
things. It took me forever to bring her around, I tell you. It's been a challenge.
Absolutely, especially when you have someone who's established. Bridgefield Group was an established company, and when we began working together, you and I had to really align on vision and mission and a lot of other things about what roles we would do. And that happens in a lot of firms, a lot of practices. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, I think about a firm that we worked with recently that the challenge was that you had the two main partners had very different skills and talents. One was very outgoing, one was very extroverted, one was great at doing the business development, things like that, and the other one was a great practitioner, did what they do super well, but was not somebody who was going to go out of the office, hated going to networking events, hated doing the kinds of things that the other person really enjoyed. And so when they started working together, the issue was, did they have any trust in that? Or did they view that as antagonism? Did they view that as competition, right? And fortunately, over a period of time, we were able to help them get to a place where they're playing off of each other's strengths. One of them enjoys the administrative side, enjoys the grinding of work, that sort of stuff. The other one enjoys going and getting new clients and growing new client relationships, all that kind of stuff. And when they figured out that they could play off those strengths, now they've got a really successful combination.
Yeah, but it's important for us to kind of understand not just their strengths, but their roles, because quite frankly, you know, you're there to grow your practice, and part of a successful practice is understanding the roles that each other plays, for people to have a role, and for people to really make sure that people are in the right role. And if you ask that practitioner to go out and network, it's not the right thing.
No, they didn't.
Right.
Yeah. And well, I mean, there's a client of ours also we recently started doing business with. They brought us in on a crisis management basis because one of their folks, who is a partner but not in leadership, didn't get that memo. You know, so next thing you know, he's like trying to do personnel stuff, and there's just all sorts of things going on that were really, really not going well. And that's when we got pulled in, and you identified that. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, a little bit of the organizational structure, and a lot of times partnerships may start with not much organization, and no one's really identified who's making the decisions.
Well, in this case, titles were important because the person who's causing the trouble, right, in large measure is because he said, hey, I'm a partner, can't I do this? And
they were in going past the lines of communication, and I think that's a big one, because so often what happens in partnerships, when you're considering them or if you have one, is the lines of communication have to be established and they have to be open, and we have to talk about the tough things. And I'm coming back to we, because a lot of times that's been one of the beauty of our relationships. When working with us, Chris and I will often argue. We don't often agree.
I prefer to call them spirited conversations. But
very spirited conversations.
Yeah, I mean, we come at things differently.
Yeah. And recognizing that was a strength for us, because we brought two different perspectives to the table, and in fact more than two. I mean, you talk about us, you know, generationally we're different, culturally we're different, and so height-wise we're different. But you know, the differences that we brought make us stronger, but they don't happen unless we talk. And so when we have those tough moments, it's important for us to clear the air. And the same thing happens in partnerships. You know, when you have those tough moments, what often happens is they become a death by a thousand cuts, because no one clears the air.
Right. You need to understand something. Good partnership is often built around effective communication, which is not necessarily efficient, right? And so that means that in a business partnership, just like in any other sort of partnership, you're going to have to be willing sometimes to go through what we like to call a little bit of the sausage making, right? Go through dynamic conflict, go through the willingness to disagree on something for a little while, go through a lot of different ideas and perspectives so that what comes out at the end is truly something that's been co-created. And the power of that, the strength of that, is often so far exceeds anything that one or the other of you might have come up with. But that doesn't mean it's always easy. And sometimes it does mean it requires more time.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it also means it requires boundaries. It's one of the things that we at Bridgefield Group, Chris and I work very closely together, and we have some boundaries around the ways in which we work. And those were something that we spoke about out loud, and recognizing challenges for each other. And also getting to know each other as people. Knowing about what's going on in our personal lives. And so that's important. And you know, some of the stories, some of the things that clients often deal with when growing their practice has nothing to do with their practice, but rather their personal lives. I had this one client who was struggling because there were some challenges going on in her family. And she hadn't spoken about that to her supervising partner. And so when those two got together, finally it helped them realize, oh, this isn't a performance issue.
Well, and sometimes, just to bring it inside the four walls of the Bridgefield Group, in a period of about 3 weeks, Domenica took one child to her first job in another time zone, another one to college, and I took my oldest to college. Those kinds of things impact us as individuals and impact us in how we work. We have to have a little grace for each other in that. We sometimes have to pick up for each other in those circumstances. You're not perfect, and you're never expected to be, okay? Nor is life ever going to be perfect. And so part of a successful partnership is when we recognize that. But the only way we recognize that is to know each other, right? And that's not sitting down, how are the kids? Did you watch the football game the other day? It's allowing each other, appropriately of course, to get below the waterline a little bit in the world that you're walking in, the world that you live in, so that you can truly and successfully work together in ways that are going to work for the long haul. If we want to think about a couple of those things that we need to do for each other, I'd say allow yourself the opportunity to show who you are. Not just how you are, to be vulnerable. Right, exactly. Have grace for each other. Be kind. Build some boundaries, but at the same time, be honest about what's going on, about what you think. Your strength is oftentimes going to be that other person's, shall we say, not strength, because it's not weakness, but it's just not something that they're truly strong in. When you bring your strengths together, then you can truly succeed. When you start to think about how to take care of your clients globally and together, then you can truly take care of them. And at the end of the day, what all this means is that you can have the life you want, and you can have the practice that you want, working with the people that you want, both inside the company, because we have a great time together, and also with those clients that you bring through the door to help them succeed also as they define it.
Yeah. And so if you are in the process of building your practice or growing your practice, and you're in a partnership with one another and you're struggling to kind of find your way or communicate, we invite you to get in touch. Check us out on our website. We'd love to help you and see you soon.
We'd love to hear from you. Thanks.